Look, John caught him on something he said that makes no sense. Nate Silver, as we're covering the elections this weekend. And he said, well, Kansas, yeah, that was a big win for Bernie Sanders, but in a state like Kansas that's more conservative, you're going to have less liberals. If you have less liberals there, they might be more likely to be more liberal. Well, there's no data to back that up. That was just bullshit.
It was an attempt to say that Kansas is more liberal than everybody knows that it is.
And so, much more importantly, the last poll done in Kansas was 2 weeks before the caucus. Yeah, I know it's a caucus, and I know it's 2 weeks ago, but she was winning. She was winning by 10. He wound up winning by 35, right? So that tells me, okay, the polls are harder to trust, definitely in caucuses, no question. Definitely when there's less polls, and then you had both of those in the Kansas situation, but also in the primary season, when you don't have 28 polls a day like you do in a general election leading up. I mean, I trust the polls so much that I called a 2012 election 6 weeks before it happened because the polling was so obvious, so clear, and overwhelming, right? But so when you have a 45-point swing between what was supposed to happen and what actually happened, and then Nate Silver comes in and says about Kansas liberals being more liberals.
It was just that was an
attempt to explain.
Yeah, that was an attempt to explain. They don't. Not everything in their back and forth is totally backed up by data. They're also analysts, and then they crunch the numbers, and they've given us incredible. And they've only been right every time, but
they've not been right every time.
Pretty much.
I mean, to the extent that their models have percentages where any outcome is represented, yes.
You guys just pretend your guy's not losing when he's losing.
No. See, this is why I wanted to say something before you said that, because I want to differentiate, because for whatever reason, I care what Ben thinks about me. When I say that I don't think that if they were running nationally, I would project, when I say that that's BS, I'm not saying he's wrong, Bernie's going to win it. I would say that based on, and I've done a lot of looking ahead to states coming up, and I've tried to figure out what percentage of delegates they can expect and all that, I would guess that I'm more pessimistic than probably everyone else except for you. I'm not saying the polls are wrong. I'm not saying you can't trust polls. I'm not saying, oh, if she's up by 30 in Illinois, it doesn't mean anything. I think that very much means something, and it scares me. I'm saying that I think there's a reason why I have never seen this technique used for any other race.
Okay, but their techniques weren't large. No one was doing this until those guys showed up in 2008. No one was analyzing polls the way they did.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying they're not even doing that thing on the Republican side now. If that's their new amazing technique, why are they only using it with Bernie and Hillary?
Okay, and what? So what do you think the answer to that is?
I think that it's just a bad idea that's not going to actually, it doesn't actually say what they think it says.
No, I'll go further, and I'm cranky right now.
I'm not even saying it's a biased thing. They might very well believe that it's predictive. I don't think it says what they think it says.
I think they want people to read their site with interesting information.
I think that's true. I like their site. I'm on their site right now. You want me to show you? I like it.
No, I don't. Look, is Nate Silver getting paid by Hillary Clinton? No. Did Nate Silver decide to conspire with Chuck Todd and la la? I mean, we've been over this 1,000 times. Of course, no, right? But does Nate Silver live in the same bubble that every other pundit lives in? Fuck yeah, he does.
Nope, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Okay,
he doesn't.
he does.
And
Yes,
nobody's
he
here to
does.
defend
Yes, he
themselves.
does.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
You're
Okay.
you're right. You're the only one who sees it. You're the only one. It's a gift.
Okay, yeah, well, here's something interesting. Nate Silver, I read him before the Kansas vote. He told me there was no way of knowing who was going to win. Afterwards, Bernie Sanders wins by 35 points. And afterwards, he tells me, it's bullshit. Kansas liberals are more liberal. Okay. Based on what? Jack off, nothing. My pundit friends and bubble friends think that Bernie Sanders can't win. And all election season, I've been trying to prove to you how Bernie Sanders can't win. And you know that from the day one, before any of the voting, before Bernie won any of those states, Nate Silver said over and over again, he has no chance, he has no chance, he has no chance.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. You don't read him as much as I do. Nobody says that. Your characterization of what other people say when they don't agree with you is so massively flawed. It's a giant gaping weakness. That is not what they said. It is not what he said. He thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. He's going to be right. And he didn't say he has no chance, he has no chance, he has no chance.
You're telling me he didn't say that Hillary Clinton was an overwhelming favorite?
No, nor did he raise his voice like that in print.
Okay, you thought, you're telling me, now you're going to make me go back and
capitalize.
No, wait, hold on. You're going to make me fucking take all this effort to go back and find his stupid blogs and you're going to tell, and you're saying, 50-50, anybody could win, Clinton or...
No, he didn't say it was 50-50 because it wasn't 50-50.
Yeah, she was actually leading the polls.
Yeah,
No.
she was winning.
Every single thing that I read from Nate Silver, and you're right, you read him a lot more than I do, so that's an enormously fair point, okay? But everything I read that came across my desk was Nate Silver being with Bernie Sanders.
And I think because you were so ready to see that, you see honest discussion as because you want.
Well, what the fuck is honest about? I don't know who's going to win Kansas. Oh, Bernie won it by 35. Oh my God. Fuck that. It's bullshit. It's bullshit.
You may have found a 4-paragraph. Sounds more like one sentence.
It was a
that
paragraph.
was flawed. You might have found a bad paragraph on Kansas. I don't know. I didn't read that one.
Wait.
Well, I don't. No. But every time, we don't know who's going to win Kansas. We don't know who's going to win Nebraska. We don't know who's going to win Minnesota. After he wins, we knew he was going to win.
Do you know why?
Why didn't you fucking say it?
Can I tell you why I knew he was going to win Nebraska and Kansas? 538. That's why I knew. They said he was going to win.
Wait.
538.
We looked at 538.
I did. I read it constantly. I knew it. I told my wife.
You got to pull it up.
Fine, I'll pull it up. But he said because Kansas is most.
Here's what he said. I read the same
Here's what he
thing.
said. He said that Kansas is most like Oklahoma, and Bernie won Oklahoma solidly. And it's hard to tell in a caucus, but most likely that's where the same vote is going to go. That's what he said about Kansas. That's where I read it.
If Cenk's analysis is flawed, I think it should be more flawed if he and Nate Silver were running even nationally. And he's not as flawed as I projected he would be. So.
Okay, can I ask you something? Okay, one last thing on this, then we'll get off of it. Okay, if Nate Silver cares so much about the polls, and he does, that's his whole thing: polls, right? And I've defended him 1,000 times on those polls, right? Because I'm a believer in numbers. Why wasn't he surprised that at the size of the wins in Kansas and Nebraska? If I'm a guy who's obsessed with polls, I'd go, whoa, that's 45 points different than what the polls indicated. I'd write a sentence. I wouldn't write a fucking sentence about that. Nebraska, Minnesota, the size of the victories. Maine, nobody. They say, oh well, Sanders is a little bit of an edge. We think maybe in Maine. Wes and I are talking about it. We read all the polls. We read all the analysis before as we're covering it.
Wes says it's like one poll.
That's right, and it's hard, right? And Wes said his best guess was about 10. Sanders might win by 10 points. He wins by 30 points. Does anybody note the size of the wins? Only if they're in the southern states and Hillary Clinton has done them. And they should note them. She won big in those southern states. That's super relevant. She got all those delegates. Of course you should report that. But when he wins gigantic and he wins bigger than the polling, all of a sudden people who care about polls don't give a fuck about those polls and those results. Isn't that a little weird? Wouldn't he want to look into it and figure out, hey, why was there a 45-point disparity? Nah, with Bernie Sanders. Nah.